Protests on the streets.
And I will not accept
A leader stepping down.
the nomination of my party for another term.
The best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation.
Political violence.
Here it goes. Here it goes.
A convention in Chicago.
Won't you please come to Chicago or else join the other side?
2024 has echoes of 1968, tumultuous years in American history. Are the same issues at play now, or is this a nation even more divided?
People do learn from history. It doesn't repeat itself, but you can learn from it.
Michael Kazin is an historian, but back in the 1960s, he was a student out protesting when the United States felt on edge. The past decade had been about hope. The civil rights movement was finally chipping away at segregation. Change was in the air, but then came the backlash.
Assassinations of two of the most beloved, famous Americans.
Senator Kennedy has been shot. Is that possible? Oh, my God. Martin Luther King has been shot to death in Memphis, Tennessee.
There were riots or rebellions that took place after King's assassination. Over 120 cities went up in flames.
Donald Trump did not meet the same fate. But his shooting reminded Americans of the violence that surrounds their elections, especially after the events of January the 6th. USA! Is the violence, the spectre of violence, similar to them?
68, you really felt like an actual civil war might be attempting to break out. That's nothing like now. Now we're arguing about whether the election will be democratically held, and if not, what will happen. But it's much more looking forward to what might happen, the violence that might happen. 68 was a time when everyone knew violence could break out at any point, that America was combustible, physically combustible, materially combustible, very differently now.
At the convention in 1968, there were huge demonstrations against the Vietnam War, with the police using billy clubs and tear gas against them. Many wanted the anti-war Eugene McCarthy to be the Democratic nominee. His rise had seen Lyndon Johnson bow out, triggering a messy convention.
There's also a time and a place for new voices, fresh voices, yes, younger voices. And that time and place is now.
Biden's endorsement of Kamala Harris means the Democrats are more united. But similar to 1968, they are facing anti-war protests.
If Biden was the nominee for the Democrats, there was more passion opposed to him on the progressive side about the war in Gaza. So the demonstrations on the streets of Chicago that will take place would have probably been much larger, more angry than the demonstrations which will take place in Chicago with Kamala Harris being the nominee.
Some protesters have already disrupted Kamala Harris's speeches.
You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that, otherwise I'm speaking.
Occupation no more.
While Harris has increased support among young and diverse groups, there will be pro-Palestine marches this week. Could losing those voters be pivotal in the election, just like in 1968? Do you ever have any regrets?
Yes, I do, actually. I was 20 years old. I do think that my anger, my moral anger, which I think was justified about the war in Vietnam, I still think the war was very, very wrong. But I do think by demonstrating in Chicago, by helping to create trouble for the Democrats, that did help Richard Nixon win the election in 1968.
History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. It's a quirk of past and present that there are so many similarities, but they are simply on the surface. History still leaves a mark, as fewer and fewer politicians are either willing or able to reach across the aisle and bring back some unity amidst the division.